Hello, I'm Anna Amelia from North East Animal Rights. Today we are talking about whether veganism is extreme. I was vegetarian from the age of 14 until just 12 years ago. And the reason I was vegetarian for so long, most of my life, was because I thought being vegan was too hard, but too extreme as well. It was just that step too far. But I did turn vegan 12 years ago after I saw some dairy footage from, just a routine dairy footage from a UK dairy farm. But when you turn vegan as well, it's a bit like an epiphany. Some of it is absolutely glorious, but some of it's horrifying. And you suddenly become aware of animals and the suffering everywhere, and the frustrations and sadness that you feel as a vegan, particularly a new one, and the incredulity of it all as well can be overwhelming. Why can't people see what you see? You know, why can't people just wake up and see what is all around you? But this is what draws people to become active. They must do something. Now, activism comes in all shapes and forms, and there's a type of activism which suits you. However, some of it won't reach the news because it's not newsworthy. It's not seen as interesting or extreme enough to hit the news. You know, I've got a T-shirt on today which says, "Who did you have for lunch today?" Now, this is quite a gentle picture. It's, you know, some people would say it's extreme wording because it is making people feel uncomfortable. But in my mind, it's just kind of like, you know, sort of like pricking someone's conscience about who they're eating rather than what. And obviously we do stores and things as well, but you know, they're not newsworthy because they're just run-of-the-mill sort of things. But we have Animal Rebellion in the moment in the news. In London, we were down at the weekend for the march, for the National Animal Rights March, which Animal Rebellion organised. And it was just great to be there with so many like-minded people. They did say in the Evening Standard there was a few hundred people there, but actually there was thousands there. But again, that's not in their interest to say that how many people were there. Now our group is educational. We don't do protests or demos, but that's not to say that we don't support wholeheartedly other groups who have similar ideas to ours, but they prefer a more direct approach. So we support, for example, our local saves, North East Animal Saves. It can be seen as extreme. When I talk to my family, they find it, extremely odd and strange and extreme that I'm standing outside a slaughterhouse. But I do this to raise awareness, to bear witness to those animals who are going in, the final moments before their death. And we send the animals love. We also talk to the farmers as well. It's better than doing nothing. That's why we do it. But again, yes, people will say it's extreme standing outside of a slaughterhouse. But that is actually what we're doing. We're standing outside. We're not shouting at anyone. We're not sort of aggravating people. We're not pushing anything in people's faces. We're just there. We're just a presence. So how can that be extreme? And the the Animal Rebellion March, again, it wasn't newsworthy because this was 5,000 people just marching peacefully, and noisily sort of like shouting and singing and chants and things like that. But, the press said we blocked off London. The Animal Rights March didn't do that. It was pre-arranged a route with the police. But it doesn't make the news, but putting dye in fountains does, and blocking off Arla dairies and McDonald's does as well. Some groups obviously do direct action, inside and outside of restaurants, also have some impact, but it's about the kind of impact you want to have. Do you want to have business disruption, which obviously causes a problem to that particular business, or educating the public, or is it a bit of both? Both have their own success. Some of you will be aware of Canada Goose, most recently after a long campaign from activists all around the world, and we had a big presence of animal rights activists down in London in Regent Street at their flagship Canada Goose store, and they have now agreed to phase out the fur from their Canada Goose jackets. MBR Beagles, again, this is seen as an extreme protest. It isn't. It's a very peaceful protest. It's a long-term protest outside of the site where they are, where this facility is breeding beagles for vivisection. Vivisection in itself is extreme. So that's what we should be focusing on, the extreme pain and suffering and torture that these animals are going through, not the peaceful protesters outside who are trying to raise awareness. Now, most of us have also heard of animals being liberated from fur farms and things. It hits the news, but particularly in the 70s and 80s. And again, that all had its impact as well. But the news and the media turned it into some sort of like sinister terrorism act. Okay. Tash Peterson is a very vocal, controversial activist in Australia. She does some absolutely outrageous actions, but whatever you think about her actions, she undoubtedly starts a debate about veganism, opens a conversation, and again, that will have its own successes as well. And that's what we want to do. We want people to talk about veganism, but we want to talk about it in a positive way, sort of either pricking people's conscience, making them realise that what they're doing is wrong, and finding a way to help to support them to follow veganism. If we look back in history about social justice movements, you know, all of the people who took part of them at the time, they were all on the wrong side of the law, but on the right side of history. And eventually they changed the laws. You know, we have the suffragettes who were vilified, as were the anti-slavery campaigners at the time, but they knew they were on the right side of history. So they kept on going, and they eventually changed the laws. They succeeded. Similar struggles are going on around the world today, but people on the right side of history are still working to change the laws which are currently in place. Just because there's a law in place, it doesn't mean that it's right. It's just right at a particular time, you know, in that moment in history. But then it has to, you know, things move on, people change, opinions change, and people realise that the laws are wrong. So we have to change them. Exactly what happened with the fox hunting law as well. You know, this was in place for, you know, it was allowed for years and years and years, and people campaigned because people fundamentally knew it was wrong. Now, compared with actions, you know, by historical protests, blocking off, you know, distribution to McDonald's and all that, so people will temporarily go out without the milk or burger, doesn't really seem to be extreme to me. I mean, how can that be seen as extreme? It's annoying for the customers, annoying for the companies. It's about business disruption, but it's certainly not extreme. Nobody's getting hurt, you know, nobody's getting injured, nobody's getting killed. And it's certainly getting the conversation going, raising awareness and trying to work with the companies to be part of the solution rather than the cruel problem, which they are at the moment. At the end of the day, though, all animal rights activists who are in it for the animals only, nothing else, just for the animals only, they're coming from a place of peace and love. They want everyone to stop hurting animals and to allow them to live their lives in their own way. That can't be extreme, can it? Isn't that what you want for your companion animals? Isn't that what you want for your family, for yourself? So why would these animals be any different? They all have the same capacity to feel love and pain and form relationships. So why wouldn't we allow them to live their lives as they see fit? Okay, so that's just a short talk. Hopefully it'll kind of give you a few ideas. And, you know, when people say that veganism is extreme, kind of, you know, like link it into, you know, social justice movements and different things which are going on around the world at the moment. You know, and telling people that just because there's a law in place, it doesn't mean to say that that law is always going to be right, you know, and laws are there to be changed and amended and amendments put in to make it work better for the world we are all striving for, which is a safer, kinder place for everyone to live in. So this is Anna signing off now from Northeast Animal Rights. If you like our work, please sign up, you know, like and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also please on our new YouTube channel as well. That'll be absolutely brilliant. But thank you very much, most of all, for listening. And I'm signing off now. Bye for now.